God says to Moses that when you speak to Pharaoh, make sure to tell him that we will go out with our youngest and with our elders, with our sons and daughters. Interesting that the process of continuity of Jewishness begins both with the youngest and the elders. And so it is very critical to recognize that without the youngest, there will be no more oldest. And if we do not recognize the importance of that continuity, then we miss the essential aspect of the Jewish people. And the Rebbe set us on a mission in this community, and that mission has continued unabated, and it's a work in progress.
And we always have to do it with a sense of joy, because this is also what the Rebbe told us, and he said to us, I'm going with you, but it should be with joy. And I believe that too is the theme of the shul, that it's a place of simcha. You feel good, you feel energized from the davening to the programs, the adults, the children, the grandchildren, kids going off to universities, coming back home, and we go to weddings and brisim and baby namings, and it's like one big extended family where you don't want to miss any one of these beautiful simchas because they all become part of who you are.
The philosophy of the shul from its inception was very simple. Bring in under one tent anybody and everybody who wants to be part of it. No matter what is your background, no matter how good you are in one thing or in something else. When we started the shul, there were no second generations or third generations at the same place at the same time. And now we have already 5 generations of the same family at the same location at the same time.
We have 14 grandchildren, and we have 3 great-grandchildren and 1 on the way. When my husband passed away, I moved my mother into my house. That's like 3 years ago. And now she sees her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren all the time.
When I started to date my husband, the people who connected us told him, we have this girl for you. She will not leave her community. So if you're gonna date her, you should just know that things go well, you're moving to Miami.
You're not only inside of the shul environment, the shul becomes a part of you, and the shul is inside of you. And you can't really walk away from something that's inside of you because it's part of you. So when we get married or when we're ready to move on to the next stage of life, leaving something that's inside of us isn't an option for us, because this is where we are the best of who we can be.
I feel like whenever there's something going on, there is someone there to help you if you need it.
There's always a sense of security, having, all these people that I can just call.
I go to group, and sometimes I don't win, and a lot of times I don't win.
I grew up in this shul since I'm two and a half years old. I was the first kid in the shul.
What's so special about this place is that your friends are your family, and if they don't start out being your family, they will eventually. And for me, that's what happened. I ended up finding a whole other family that I married into.
It's more than just friends. You feel responsible for one another, and you feel this sense of continuity.
In a bar mitzvah in Barranquilla, Colombia, we met with the rabbi. We had 1 or 2 drinks, and he asked me, why don't you make a pledge on your name and the name of your brothers? And like I had a couple of drinks, too many, maybe. I said, okay, I'll pledge for my brothers too. And it was a good thing.
It was built on foundation of the Rebbe's vision, a foundation of Torah and mitzvahs and love.
We want our kids growing up
you know, seeing their Safta and Zaidi and Yaya and Abuelo on a, you know, regular basis.
This shul is our shul, and it's our second home. My kids, they used to sit on my lap like my grandson was sitting on my lap just recently. So it's like deja vu, and it's like a continuity.
I love coming to show my whole family's here. And there's so many of them.
First of all, I've been here a while. It's over 16 years already. And I'd say that the rabbi is very intimidating. He's still intimidating. And that's something, you know, you never get used to.
Rabbi Lipsker, in the way he delivers sermons, in the way he sets up davening, he has a gift to neutralize and to break down barriers of culture, barriers of spirituality, and his influence creates an environment of oneness.
Among the community itself, you have Hasidic families, you have people that wear the shtreimels and the spotek, and then you have regular, more modern people, some with beards, some without beards, some who come from all different walks of life. But it really is interesting that everyone here combines to make one family unit.
I never had an understanding of what Judaism was until I started going to the shul. And as much as my parents had a frame of reference, getting them involved with the shul changed their entire life. All of a sudden, Judaism wasn't just something you learn about. It was something that you started to live. My mother and my father, they made their house kosher when they were in their 70s. My mother went to the mikveh for the first time when she was in her late 70s. My dad, who would never put on tefillin, I got him he asked me once, what do you want for a birthday present? I said, anything I want. He said, anything you want. So I said, why don't you put tefillin on with me?
The very first pair of tefillin that I started to wrap on a regular basis was from my father coming here and the shul having a shul bank where they were giving out tefillin, and it was Mark Sheridan's father who was behind that. And I said to my dad, I want to start wrapping tefillin. So he arranged, and my uncle Benny, of blessed memory, came to Montreal at that time and brought me my first pair of tefillin, and that was my first real connection with the shul.
I want to thank everybody for giving us a place to daven and to be close to Hashem.
It really gives people like a sense of belonging, and it makes them feel like they want to come here.
My favorite thing about the show is getting kiddush and getting the cake and candy.
My grandma's like the celebrity here. Everyone knows Miss Faye, Rabbi Lipsker's assistant.
My mother, from the beginning of meeting Rabbi Lipsker, she immediately felt very nurturing towards him. And she would make sure that he was eating. She would make sure that he had some water to drink. If she saw an article in the newspaper that she thought he should read, she would bring it for him. If she felt that he wasn't looking well, she would call Mrs. Chani Lipsker and say, I don't think Rabbi is looking well today. So she took the job to the realm of actually looking after the rabbi during his working hours here as well.
Congregants are my extended family. Knowing them over all these years and their families, I feel that they're part of my life.
I'm dreaming of the day where I could walk with my children to shul and sit next to my father, and have my children sit next to me, next to my father. And I think that says so much about this community and Jewish continuity in general.
From 30 years ago, I used to walk with my children from 88th Street here to the shul every Shabbos, my daughter and with the 4 boys. And now history is repeating itself, because I look forward to every Shabbos when I go and pick up this little guy and this little girl.
What was so refreshing to Hannah and I was the
attitude of the rabbi and Rebbitzin that children are meant to be children.
We were raising 3 young boys at the time, so how fortunate it was for us that they could come here and feel comfortable, and their rambunctiousness was not looked at as anything but part of who they were. I remember the rabbi saying, the sound of children is the sound of Hashem.
One of the most natural and classic aspects of this manifestation is the fact that during my talk on a regular basis, I will have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old kids that will come up to the bima right in the middle of my sermon, my talk. They'll hug my leg, they'll pull on my hand just to make sure until I will put my hand on their head or make sure I acknowledge them, and then they'll go down. They will not say a word, they won't disturb. Just came up there. And on a regular basis, I mean, I get hugs from kids that you know for sure that they've got to feel to you like a spiritual Zaidi, because otherwise little kids like that don't go around hugging people with beards my age.
Rabbi Lipsker and Chani are like grandparents to me. They've been there forever, as long as I can remember. They built the shul. Everyone knows it.
Rabbi Lipsker is like my godfather.
Sometimes it's really funny when like these ladies come to me and say, "Oh, could you hug your Zaidi for me?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure."
When my parents started the shul, they had a couple of families who began the shul with them, and those became their friends. And now Zalman and I, Yankee and Hannah, are friends with their children, and our children are friends with their children.
My house is really always open to like everybody in the whole shul. It's really a family, so coming to shul isn't just coming to shul to pray, it's coming to shul and experiencing shul.
This is where we grew up, this is where our family invested all of our energies, and it's where the Rebbe gave us the greatest blessings to be here.
I believe that the Rebbe and the lessons that he shared, the direction he gave, the inspiration to Rabbi Lipsker and all the shluchim around the country and around the world is what we try to do here, most of us in our own families and in our particular contribution to the community.
It's a great joy for me to look around and see my children, my grandchildren, my granddaughters standing and praying, and the boys, and having my great-grandchildren with me. So it's a plus, and it's just too bad that my husband is not here to enjoy the fruit of his labor.
Our shul is not just my shul, but it is also my mother's shul, and my grandparents' shul, and my in-laws' shul, and my kids' shul. And God willing, one day it'll be my grandchildren's shul and my in-laws' shul.
We are just excited about the whole future growth of the shul and the accommodation to children.
As our community grows, we are building classrooms for the children, social halls, more functionality for what we need, and this is our way of passing the Torah and that education to our children and keeping and maintaining that continuity.
You're kind of lost a little bit. You walk in the shul, there's always going to be someone who's going to say, "Hey, you want to sit down and learn a little bit? We'll grab a coffee, we'll do this, we'll sit down, we'll talk about life," and then we can stag a little bit for 5-10 minutes.
I've traveled to many places, even out of the United States, to Poland, Germany, and I can't find a place which has a whole block of kosher restaurants, a thriving shul, thriving community, friends and family. There isn't any place like the Shul of Bel Harbour.
This is our second home because there are so many connections here for us and so many wonderful things happening for us on a regular basis.
This is where I've grown spiritually, where I really started and developed myself as a young Jewish woman entering society. So I would definitely consider this as the starting point in my life.
They're growing up with this love of shul and Yiddishkeit that, we had to work a lot harder. Our parents had to work a lot harder for us to have. I went through everything in my life, through the wedding of my kids, through the birth of my son, and now I went through the Kaddish of my father and my father-in-law, and it's always been there for us.
The Rebbe gave us a blessing, Chani and myself, when we went to see him, we had 2 children, Leah and Zalman, and the Rebbe said, you will have many sons and daughters. And so he already put into motion the fact that our community are our spiritual children, literally my spiritual family. To share the Rebbe's blessings to this community, to grow from strength to strength in an over-the-top manner, and always be filled with good feelings, with positive emotions, with loving kindness to each other, with a caring and empathetic attitude, and knowing that what we are building is made up of souls, Jewish people, adults and children, that all come together, one brick at a time, to make the totality of the Jewish people whole.